Hi, everybody. We're going to be starting in about 3 minutes as we continue to gather. To attend this evening. We're going to wait 1 more minute and then I will kick things off. Okay, I'm going to kick things off. Hi, everybody. My name is Sean Brown. I'm a director on the board of the MIT Sloan Boston Alumni Association. It's my pleasure to welcome you to our 83rd Career Series session, although it is our first virtual session on the inner techniques of career transition. We'll also talk about some research-based practices such as affirmations, meditation, and gratitude that can help support your success during a transition. We launched our series in 2009 in partnership with Keystone Partners, which is Boston's leading executive coaching and career transition firm, to help support the professional advancement of MIT Sloan Boston area alumni. Our 80-plus Career Series events have featured a wide range of experts, including from Keystone, from MIT, faculty, alumni, and others, to share best practices on this important topic. Before we begin, I'd like to remind everybody that due to the large number of attendees, everyone is muted on the line. During the presentation, you may ask questions via the Q&A panel, which is located at the bottom of your screen. I'll be reviewing and asking your questions throughout the session. And at the end of the session, we're also going to reserve some minutes to remove the mute for a group discussion. And finally, please note, we are recording this session and we'll also make the recording available to all attendees afterwards. Now I'd like to briefly introduce our speaker, Bonnie Petrovich. Bonnie is a vice president at Keystone Associates and the leader of their Southborough location. She collaborates with clients to market their strengths and experience to make the invisible visible. She's over 20 years of experience in working in human resources training and talent development with Fortune 500 companies and smaller businesses across a range of industries. Bonnie was named Career Coach of the Year in 2013 by ICF New England. She's a certified trainer and an experienced group facilitator. Bonnie also holds a master's in education and counseling psychology from Cambridge College, as well as degrees from University of Wisconsin-Green Bay and Ohio University. Bonnie, it's my pleasure to turn things over to you. Bonnie, I think you're still on soft mute. There we go.
Now, with the voice. Thank you, Sean.
Hear you loud and clear.
Okay, excellent. Yep. So thank you very much. I'm really delighted to be invited to talk with you all today. And on a topic that I think is really an important part of the career transition conversation. What I've seen over the now 12 years that I've worked with Keystone and have focused on helping professionals of all levels, executives in all levels in virtually every industry, what I've seen is that the kinds of things that can trip us up in making the progress that we would like are more the inner kinds of things, where our thoughts go, where our emotions can take us, that can trip us up, even if we know very well how to craft a great resume or prepare for interviewing. And so that's what I'd like to talk about, the things that will support you in being focused and being motivated and having the kind of energy that you want to bring to your next professional step. So, and like Sean said, we'll be muted throughout, although there will be some times that I'll be asking for your input. I'm used to doing this live and in person, and so this is a newer experience for me to do it in a webinar format. But there's 4 points where we'll do a quick poll and get some input from you all. It'll be multiple choice, quick and easy to do, and we'll show the anonymous results to everybody. And then there'll be a couple points where I'll invite you to put in a couple comments in the Q&A box that you can share. And then at the very end, plan to wrap up at around 20 of 8 or so. And then there'll be time where you can give your comments about takeaways from this session, ask questions. We'll have a little bit of discussion then. So this will be a bit of an experiment. So I do welcome your participation, and at any point also, if you have a question, Sean will be keeping track of that. And if there's any question that you have, if something I'm saying is unclear, please feel free to voice it. Odds are, if it's unclear to you, it's going to be unclear to some other people too. And if you voice it, it gives me the opportunity to clarify it for everyone. So, all right. So what I'd like to do is to go ahead and start with our first poll. So Tina or Sean, if you would release poll number 1. This is just asking you basically why you signed up for this webinar. Hopefully a box showed up on your screen. And if you just quickly go ahead and check whichever one is most true for you. You signed up because you're in the midst of a career transition, or you're anticipating being in a job search, or just the topic sounded interesting, or you could use some help in managing your thoughts and emotions and energies, particularly not only during this career search time, but this time of pandemic circumstances. So go ahead and pick
Bonnie,
whichever one fits best.
Yeah. So we've got another 5 seconds till the poll is going to close. And while we wait for that, Bonnie, one question for you. In terms of the clients that you work with, how often are they aware of the need to manage emotions and energy? Or is this something that is also part of the discovery process? And we've got our results here, so maybe we can react to that, and then it would be great if you could answer that question.
Okay, yeah, that's a great question, Sean. Actually, let me answer it first while it's in my head.
Okay.
And we can go to the poll results. It's a mix. It really depends on somebody's level of self-awareness. Sometimes they just know, geez, I know we talked about my making progress on my resume. I just couldn't concentrate on it. It seemed too hard. Can you help me with it? Or it might be, yeah, I know I set a target for 3 networking meetings, but there's some hesitancy that then we explore. So it might just be this kind of invisible barrier to making the kind of progress they want. Or in some cases, people have a variety of things going on. And right now there can be the added circumstances of maybe they're homeschooling kids and feeling overwhelmed by that. They've got concerns about elderly parents getting groceries safely. There could be all sorts of factors that they might share, directly. So let's see. The main reason you signed up for this webinar, mostly about almost 40% of you said you're in the midst of a career transition right now. And another almost 30% said you're anticipating one. And a few of you just were curious and said this sounded interesting. And about, almost a third of you said, you could use help, particularly in these especially challenging circumstances. So how brave of you to say, and how self-aware of you to say. So thank you. Thanks, Sean. All right. So next slide. There we go. So these are the 3 techniques that I plan to focus on today. Positive affirmations. How do we feed ourselves positive messages when we've got minds that are maybe giving us less than that? what's the value of meditation and other mindfulness practices? How can that be useful when you're in a time of a career transition? And then what role can gratitude play and the practice of focusing on the things we're grateful for? So those are the 3 topics I've chosen as really key. And so here we go. So the first one I want to talk about is positive affirmations. And just by nature of the human condition, right? We all have a mind. Our minds are always being active, and they'll go wherever they go, right? In Eastern philosophy, they have a term, monkey mind, right? Just like a monkey in the wild will jump from branch to branch to branch. The nature of our minds, unheeded, are just going to jump from thought to thought to thought to thought. And so we can either be kind of at the mercy of those thoughts that are running, and often they can take us to a worrisome or fearful place, or we can take charge and say, how do I want to feel, and what messages do I want to give myself? What would support me right now? So I want to talk about how a positive affirmation can be helpful to you in lots of different points in your transition process. You may be heading into an interview or a networking meeting. You might be sitting in your car getting ready to go. Well, actually these days, you probably wouldn't be sitting in your car waiting to go into an interview as much as you'd probably be sitting at your home, making sure you're geared up with Zoom and an interview outfit and getting ready to conduct an interview virtually. But in any event, it would be very natural for any of us to have a certain amount of nervousness or concern. Do we know enough? Do we have enough? Would we be a good enough match for this position that we're interested in? And sometimes we can be having thoughts that are working against us, right? Geez, I'm afraid, we might be more of like a George Costanza, right, on Seinfeld, where the thoughts that are going through our head are more, geez, I can't do this, I'm not worthy, I'm not good enough, nobody's going to want me. And in fact, and you may otherwise have thoughts that go through your head like if we think of a James Bond or a Wonder Woman, right? Whatever circumstances they're dealing with, I got this, I'm going to take care of this, I'm strong, I can do this, right? And either set of thoughts actually have a physiological effect in our bodies. There's now so much more research that's being done about what happens in our brains and what happens in our bodies. And so they can see now, depending on our brain activity and the thoughts that we're thinking, what neurotransmitters get released into our bodies. Literally, our bodies are always listening to the thoughts that we're thinking. And those neurotransmitters, those chemical messengers, go throughout our whole body. And they affect our ability to digest. They affect how our hormones flow. They affect whether we feel happy or sad or angry. So our thoughts are directly connected to what we experience. So that's one of the reasons why I recommend this technique. Another is that in communication studies, they talk about how the main message that people take from us is not the actual words that we say. It's actually the unspoken aspects of how we communicate. It's our body language, how we carry ourselves. It's the tone of voice. It's the eye contact, facial expressions. And so the thoughts that we hold are going to affect all of those things. Do we show up kind of, I hope they want me, or I'm a great asset to somebody. I look forward to finding out about this opportunity. So what I'd like to do is give you an opportunity to create a tool for yourself that you can use. So I tend to call it a power message. We could call it a positive affirmation. But I'm going to give you, in a minute, I'm going to give you a minute to just think of what's something positive that would support you as you move forward. I'll give you an example. When I was in the process of creating these slides and knew I was going to be coming to present to you all, I was out for a walk and I realized, oh, I'm feeling a bit nervous about doing this. It's like, that's not how I want to feel. I want to feel enthusiastic. I want to feel confident. I want to feel relaxed. And I thought, okay, so let me walk my own talk here. So what message could I give to myself that would put me in a better place? And so I was thinking, and what I came up with for that moment was, hey, I'm a talented and experienced presenter, and I'm sharing ideas that matter. So I kind of ran that for a while. I'm a talented and experienced presenter, and I'm sharing ideas that matter. And the more and more I said it, I could feel myself calming down, getting a little more confident. And so that's how this can be helpful. So what I'm going to suggest is that you think of how you would like to be feeling, and go with your first instinct. This doesn't have to be the ultimate power message or affirmation. This is just something for now, not forever. Keep it short and sweet. And I'm going to give you the next minute to just draft something. Hopefully you have some paper and something to write with near you. So I'll give you a minute of quiet and just go ahead and write some message for yourself.
And if folks do want to put them in the Q&A, those will be confidential. And I'm happy to, share some anonymously with Bonnie. But Bonnie, while we wait for folks to write that, one of the questions that has come up is related to what you're talking about now, is related to how many times do you need to say this for it to be effective? Is there a magic number? Is it you say it once and you're done? Or if I say, so we have one person who put in confident. So do you need to say, I am confident? Like, does it need to be like Jeopardy? Not in the form of a question, but so can you talk a little bit more about the specifics of how that sort of activates the brain and our bodies?
Okay. So this is a perfect segue because the next thing I was going to have people do is to recite it several times for about a minute and a half and then see how you're feeling. So in terms of the specifics, there's not a magic number that I know of for reciting it, but I would say several times. The more you do it, the better. It's just reinforcing that message within yourself, within your brain. You're creating neural pathways that you want to reinforce, right? And so the more you do it, the better. And kind of with my own little example here that I gave, whenever I found myself getting into a nervous kind of place, then I just ran the affirmation. So yeah, anytime you want, the more the better. But I would say not to make it a have to do so that I got to plow through 30 of these. It'd be better to just, in a relaxed fashion and a kind fashion to yourself, say it a few times. Yeah. Good question.
And Bonnie, related to that, is it internal? Like, I am going to do well on this job interview, or is it, I am going to get this job before you go into the interview? Like, what do you, in your experience with clients, is it more to have that internal focus that just says, I'm going to have a really good conversation, or is it also including others who are going to make the decision as to whether to hire you?
Great distinction here, because you want to focus on the things you have control over. I won't have control over whether or not they hire me, right? But I will have control over, I'm strong, I'm talented, I could be an asset to the right organization. So I can focus on all the things that I bring to it. In my case, ideas that matter, talented presenter. I am experienced in doing that. So you want to have things that are believable to you, because otherwise your mind will argue with it and you don't want to go there. So like, for example, if I were to say, I'm the best presenter that MIT's ever seen, my mind's going to argue with that, right? Oh no, they've probably seen other fantastic people. They've done this or that. And so that would create a kind of resistance. And so You want to go into a place that's believable. And if it feels a little bit of a jump, like something you can play with is the what if. What if I'm one of the best presenters they've ever seen? My mind can't really argue with that, right? What if I'm one of the best? So play with it until there's not resistance.
So a couple of the ones that came in, confident and responsive. And one that came in was dream big. So can you just comment on how that differs from the sort of internally focused? It's, that one seems more focused on aspiration than on here's this quality that I bring, or maybe I dream big could have been the statement there.
Yeah, so I'm wondering, were they saying, geez, when I recite this or message, I feel like I'm dreaming big, or or was it a question about dreaming big?
So it was just the two words that were entered. So, but in your opinion, does something like, go for the mountaintop, or, those kinds of more motivating, again, this is that distinction between, are you trying to come up with motivating statements like I'm going to climb that mountain or I'm going to dream big, versus I'm a big thinker or I dream big and that's a good thing?
Without talking to the person directly, I'll just kind of interpret it and take a guess here. But I'd say you want to kind of test this out in your physical body, right? Does this energize you? Does that help you feel more confident or calmer? Or does this make you feel more tense? I should be dreaming big, or I whatever. It's like, does this help me line up with what's true for me? Like, I know I want to share things that matter to people. I know that I want to do something that makes somebody's life a little easier or helps them make the kind of progress that they want. So anything that helps you line up with what's true for you, I'd say. But again, our physical bodies don't lie. Like our minds we can give ourselves all sorts of messages, right? And they'll either go thud, or they'll say, oh, that feels good. That feels good. That feels energizing. So what I would say about this, for the sake of time, because I want to make sure we get through all of our topics here, what I'd say, instead of reciting it now while we've been having this conversation, unless you already have, to go ahead and feel free to use this anytime. Also feel free to create anytime as well. So maybe the next time you're going on a networking meeting, before you pick up the phone or dial into Zoom, or you're on an interview, or maybe you're starting your job search activities for the day and you want to get yourself in a nice, positive, confident place as you approach everything. This can be a nice thing to do, to kind of reset yourself to a good, positive place and have the energy you want. And I'd say, with this, don't necessarily believe me. Go ahead, be the experiment yourself, be your own evidence. Just try it out and see, is it something that serves you and supports you? And if so, use it. All right, to wrap up this section, well, this was, once you repeat it some number of times, I was going to ask what you feel like. And I wanted to close with this quote by Gandhi that I really liked. Now, this is somebody who knew a lot about the power of keeping your thoughts in a certain place and expanding into what you want to hold. He says, keep your thoughts positive because your thoughts become your words. Keep your words positive because your words become your behaviors. Keep your behaviors positive because your behaviors become your habits. Keep your habits positive because your habits become your values. Keep your values positive because your values become your destiny. Thank you, Gandhi. So
one question that did come in, and it is another distinction question. Is it okay to say, I am going to overcome this problem, versus I have the strength to overcome this problem. So that was the question from the audience. Like, what are some of the effects? Are there any specific qualities to these statements that you need to go for that sort of reduce that cognitive dissonance in your brain that you were describing?
Oh, this is a great subtlety and important part. You want to go straight to the desired state. So rather than, I have the ability to overcome, let's see, let me think of an example. So if I'm heading into an interview, I have the ability to overcome my tendency to stutter, for example, right? It's like you're going to focus on, oh, but sometimes I have a tendency to stutter, or I don't think of the words that I want. So instead, go to the desired state. What do you want? I want to feel relaxed and confident and articulate. I'm relaxed, confident, and articulate. The words come to me as they need to. You want to keep reinforcing straight to the desired state. Yeah, great distinction. Okay, any other questions before I move on to the next topic?
Nope, thanks.
Good to go? All right. So this positive affirmations was talking about how we can use our minds to feed ourselves good, positive, supportive messages, and that literally change our brain and body chemistry. So what I want to talk about next is a technique that's going to give us a pause from our thoughts and create kind of a space so that we can experience the kind of calm that exists beyond our mind. So meditation and mindfulness practices. So, well, actually, let me run the poll now. There's a second or a third poll, right? Asking how many of you meditate or have tried meditation or have some other kind of mindfulness practice. So Tina or Sean, if you could release that next poll for folks, that'd be great.
That'll be Tina. Thanks, Tina.
Okay. Oh, you know what? I forgot to do this one. This is
well,
actually,
let's do this one now. No. Do you want to skip it?
I'm going to skip it. But thank you. So that was my bad. Thank you though, Tina. So poll number 3, great. So this one's going to be about, do you meditate or do you have some other mindfulness practice? Maybe you meditate on a regular basis, you're new to meditation, sometimes you meditate, or you haven't tried meditation, or you have some other practice that helps you manage your thoughts and energy in a positive, calming direction. So we'll take a couple minutes for you to respond. And we'll see what people have to say.
And while that's coming in, Bonnie, next question that came in was related to what amount of meditation does the trick, or is it different for every person? In other words, is 5 minutes a day enough? And are there any sources that you'd recommend, like Mindspace or any that you've found that your clients have found to be particularly effective?
Okay. So in terms of the amount of time, just that you meditate is all to the good. There are some traditions that recommend 15 to 20 minutes in the morning and in the evening on a regular basis. And I've also seen research that shows that as little as 3 minutes of meditation, deep breathing, literally starts changing our state. So even if you only have a little window, it can make a difference. There is something to be said about, the 15, 20 minutes period of time. And meditation is something, the benefits of which accumulate over time. That's all to the good. All right, let's see the results of our poll. So about a little less than 40% of us sometimes meditate. Okay. And let's see, and we've got about 20 people that meditate on a regular basis. And There's about 25% or so that are either new to meditation or haven't yet tried it, okay? And about 30% that have some other kind of practice. You know, that's things like yoga, Tai Chi, it could be prayer, it could be reading spiritual texts or books. So there's all sorts of things. Walking in nature mindfully. All right, thank you. All right, so meditation and mindfulness, it sounds like a lot of you are acquainted with it. My aim is to share a little bit about why I chose this as one of the key practices, and a little bit about what the research is showing, because there is so much more research that's now available. Even though meditation, for example, has been a part of ancient religious traditions for thousands of years, it's been more recently that we've been studying it with and having the technology to take a look at what really happens in our brains when we meditate, what happens in our bodies. And so a lot more of that's getting measured. So the reason I picked this is I've definitely seen people that come in that have some kind of mindfulness practice. Often it's meditation, but not necessarily. And there's just a way that they're more resilient. They tend to be a little more calmer as a set point. And they tend to be able to think a little more clearly. Because that's another thing that can happen when we feel very stressed. It's hard for us to think clearly about things that of course we can solve, of course we can figure out and respond to. So I've seen meditation help with all that. I'm going to kind of use meditation and mindfulness practices a bit interchangeably for our purposes today, because I think you can get a majority of value in a few different ways, not only meditation per se. So another reason I picked this is right now, whenever you're in a career transition, that already has a certain amount of stress to it, right? You're in this in-between time. You've stopped working at the place you used to. You're not yet in your new opportunity, and you're in this unknown period. It's temporary, but you're in the unknown. And so that's not settling for us humans, right? We tend to prefer what's familiar and what feels like it's known territory. So that's already a little stressful. Then you've got our current circumstances with the care we need to take about physically distancing ourselves and health measures and all. And so there's that whole level of uncertainty. And you may have concern about or challenges, like I said earlier, with homeschooling, with parents that need to get groceries or have health issues. Or maybe you have somebody in your household that's very vulnerable and you have to pay extra special attention to this time and taking risks. So all of those things can factor in and kind of add up. And I was looking at the National Institutes of Health to see what do they have to say about, when we have too much stress, and to what degree do we experience anxiety or panic or depression. And so the research they have is that about a third of the US population experiences some type of anxiety disorder in their lifetimes. And about over 17 million adults experience a major depressive episode in a year, in any given year. The last year they had statistics for was 2017. So there's a lot of us that at some point in time can hit that level of stress where it's exceptionally harder for us to take action, to be focused. And so meditation and mindfulness practices are one of those things that not only can help us if we hit those even more challenging points, but they can create a kind of preventative layer to help you be more resilient and able to meet the different challenges that come up. And so there's certainly a lot of factors that can help any of us if we hit periods of depression or anxiety and hit that level, degree of stress. But today, for right now, I'm just going to talk about how meditation and mindfulness can be helpful. So I have a cartoon to share with you that I thought was great. It kind of depicts, what do I mean by mindfulness, right? So here's a human walking their dog, sunny day, trees around. The human is busy thinking about their appointments, the errand they need to go on, the music that they listen to, the conversation they had with somebody at work, the work that they need to do while they walk through the sunny day in the trees. The dog is just noticing the trees and the sunny day and just being fully present to this moment, to the walk. And so that's what we're aiming at when I talk about mindfulness. Just being in the fully in this present moment. So while there's a lot of different quotes about what mindfulness is, I picked this one. I think it captures the essence of it pretty well, and it's pretty short and sweet. So mindfulness is simply being aware of what's happening right now without wishing it were different, enjoying the pleasant without holding on when it changes, which it will, and being with the unpleasant without fearing it will always be this way, which it won't. You know, there's the quote of "this too shall pass," both the good and the uncomfortable. It will all keep shifting. Another thing that I think is important to think about here is that the mind can be a really wonderful servant, right? If it's great if we're trying to solve a problem, come up with solutions. If we need to analyze something, we need to improve a process. Our mind can be very helpful, focused in that direction. But if we don't practice focusing it, it can become a really dangerous master, right? It can take us all the way around the block and back. And we've all known those circumstances, all of us, just by virtue of the fact that we're human. So if our minds might tend to take us to the past and focus on that, what's transpired before that we can do nothing about anymore, or it could take us into the future and could worry about things that are yet to happen or may never likely happen. Where's that sweet spot? The sweet spot is right here in now, in this present moment. So that's what we're aiming for when we talk mindfulness. And one of the great teachers that teaches all about accessing being in this present moment, being in the now, is Eckhart Tolle. And probably some of you are familiar with his book, The Power of Now. He's also written another book called Stillness Speaks. And there's a quote from Stillness Speaks that I'd like to share with you. He says, "On the surface, it seems that the present moment is only one of many, many moments. Each day of your life appears to consist of thousands of moments where different things happen. Yet, if you look more deeply, is there not only one moment, ever? Is life ever not this moment? This one moment, now, is the only thing you can never escape from, the one constant factor in your life. No matter what happens, no matter how much your life changes, one thing is certain, it's always now." And he would say, since there's no escape from the now, why not welcome it? Why not become friendly with it? So, I could quote you all sorts of studies about what's been done in measuring our brain activity when we're doing certain activities, when we're holding certain emotions. I could talk to you about the centers that have sprung up. I could talk to you about, all sorts of things and ways that mindfulness is being adopted. For example, there's more and more Fortune 500 companies doing things with mindfulness, embracing it in their cultures, adding it to their leadership programs. Google has a leadership institute called Search Inside Yourself Leadership Institute. And other companies that are making making use of mindfulness practices are Patagonia, General Mills, Eileen Fisher, Aetna, Apple, Goldman Sachs. You know, there's plenty of them now that are making use of the non-religious aspects of mindfulness. One of the people actually right here in Massachusetts that's been credited with popularizing mindfulness practices is John Kabat-Zinn. He's an author, and he's also founded it's the Center for, I want to get it right, the Center for Mindfulness in Medicine, Healthcare, and Society. It's based here in Worcester, Mass at the UMass Medical School. And so there's plenty of places like that that are making use of the research that exists and the benefits. I'll give you a little bit more research, and then I'm going to give us lead us in an experience to take a little pause ourselves. Oh, and this is just for fun, a cartoon that captures capturing the here and now. All right, so in terms of some of the benefits that the research is pointing out to us for meditation, it has been shown to reduce pain and our body's experience of pain, and to also strengthen our immune system. So meditation is actually something that can help you in the cold and flu season, or even if there's coronavirus out and about. It's one of the things that helps strengthen your immune system. And emotionally, it can reduce feelings of depression, anxiety, anger, confusion. It's been shown to increase our blood flow and slow our heart rate. It provides a sense of calm and peace and greater balance. It has been shown to help reverse heart disease. And it is a practice of controlling our thoughts and practicing, you know, bringing our thoughts back to where we want them to be rather than where they might travel off to. It also increases energy. And I could say that from my own personal experience when I've been in periods of meditating really regularly. And to be quite honest, I go in and out of meditating really regularly. But when I have meditated really regularly, I notice a nice, solid, steadier increase in my energy. And also certainly reduces my experience of stress as well. So these all have been shown through the different technology that we have now. There's something called a functional MRI that's been able to clue us in on just what happens when we meditate, for example, and what happens within our brain. So one of the key aspects to just about any form of meditation or mindfulness practice is deep breathing. And so I want to take a minute to talk about that. And what we mean by deep breathing, you've always heard, right, you know, if somebody says, geez, I'm feeling nervous about something or overwhelmed by something, oh, just take a few deep breaths. Well, there's actually a very physiological basis to that. When we're taking a breath so deep that our lungs fill, our belly expands, and we take a nice, slow, deep breath and fill our lungs that way, and then take a nice, slow, deep breath out through our nose. That actually sends a message to a very major nerve called the vagus nerve. It's connected from our brain through most of our major organs and our gut. And when we experience big, deep breaths, it sends the signal, oh, all is well. You know, there's no tigers chasing us. There's no problem at the moment. Life is good. I can relax. I can be calm. And that literally sends a signal to all your major organs. And so taking deep breaths is actually really one of the best and quickest things that you can do at any point in time. So what I'd like you to do is I'll lead us in just a brief meditation experience if you'd like to join in. I'd say just go ahead and make yourself comfortable in the chair, whatever chair you're in. And if you're comfortable to do so, feel free to just close your eyes or just close them most of the way and focus them softly. And this will just be for about 3 or 4 minutes. So first, I invite you to just go ahead and feel the support of your chair. Just notice that you're in a chair that's supporting your hips. Maybe your feet are on the floor. The floor is supporting your feet and your legs. And just allow your hands and arms to relax. Maybe you set your hands on the chair or on your thighs. Just kind of notice what you're feeling. If you become aware of any tension in your body, just go ahead and gently allow it to settle out. And so I would encourage you to start off with 3 deep breaths. And I would suggest in through your nose to the count of 5, filling your lungs, letting your belly expand. We're not seeing you, we're not hearing you. So feel free to have your own experience with this. And then exhale also through your nose to the count of 5. Nice, slow, deep breath. And do 3 of those in and out. And then just allow your breath to settle in naturally to its own rhythm. Just notice what your body's feeling like. Maybe you have a slight smile on your lips. And start noticing the sounds that you hear in whatever environment you're in. And let them just be there and come and go. Nothing you need to do about them. We're just being aware of them. And also just go back to noticing your physical body. And continue to just keep focusing on your breath. Now, thoughts are going to enter in, and I suggest just naming them. Thinking, one word. And then bring your attention back to just focusing on your breath, the air coming into your nostrils, the air going out. When another thought comes through, which they will, maybe it's planning. Just notice it, name it, let it go, and refocus your mind back on your breath. I'll just give you another minute of silence to practice refocusing your mind on your breath. Okay, so now just start becoming more aware of your feet on the ground, your body being supported by your chair, and whatever sounds you might hear in your room. Start becoming aware of the webinar we're all still engaged in, and bring your attention gradually back to this webinar. And as you're ready, if you had your eyes closed, just go ahead and gently open them. And as any of you are ready, I would welcome you to write in a word or two of how you're feeling right now. And you can do that in the Q&A box. And we'll share the kinds of things that might show up.
I think you're seeing some of these, Bonnie, peaceful, refreshed, relaxed. I decided not to ask any questions while you were going through that because I didn't want to interrupt that feeling of sort of mindfulness.
Excellent.
But again, one question that did come up was how long does one need to do this for it to really be effective, both on a daily, on a per time basis? In other words, each time one does it, and then how often does one need to do it?
So again, you're going to get lots of opinions about that. What I would say is, from my own personal experience, I first started meditating back in my 20s. That was many, many years ago. So what I found is consistency brings me more value than a particular amount of time. So my aim right now actually is to meditate every day at least once. And some days it's 20 or 30 minutes. It's wonderful if I have that time. Some days it's 2 or 3 minutes. And that's what I can do. And sometimes it's a guided meditation. If I'm finding it's hard for me to just simply keep refocusing on my own breath, then I might find it easier to listen to somebody's words. So I might do that. There's lots of different techniques for meditating, and I'd say find whatever works best for you today, in this moment. And it might change from day to day, from meditation to meditation. So consistency more than the amount of time. And you will hear people say 15 to 20 minutes twice a day is a really nice kind of beneficial rhythm.
Bonnie, have you seen anybody do this related to exercise? In other words, just before or just after? Part of the problem is how do you integrate this into your life, right? Do you do it before you shower, or like how do you put in almost not guardrails, but just ways to sort of force a habit as opposed to trying to think of it? So any suggestions you can share there?
Sure. And that is where you'll get the most value, when you can build it into a habit. And right now, for me, personal experience, I find first thing in the morning is the easiest to make sure that it happens most all of the time. And I find if I do some yoga stretches first, in the wintertime, those are even in bed. Well, it's still warm. So on nice days, I got my yoga mat out in the guest room. So a few stretches first, and then meditating seems to be a nice combination, like I'm kind of stretched and a little woken up. And then I meditate, and then I go into shower, breakfast, the other parts of my day. Some people find a midday break is really nice. I find that harder to do once my day's off and running. I'd say whatever works for you and your lifestyle, but you're right, Sean, getting it to become a habit is where the greatest rewards are for you. Yeah. Okay. All right, folks. Thanks for sharing your comments. So that's a little bit about taking a pause from our thoughts. The last technique that I want to share with you is the power of gratitude. And this is one that I think is often so overlooked and underestimated. It doesn't have to cost anything. It can take very little time, but the benefits are really huge. And again, there's been some research done on the benefits of gratitude as well. What I'll speak to first before research is my own experience of working with clients and noticing their particular perspective. Usually when I start working with somebody, let's say they've just been laid off, one of the first things I'll ask them is, geez, so how are you doing with the news? And it gives me a sense of kind of where people are at and how to support them from there. And there was one time, there was a gentleman, I'll always remember him. I said, geez, so how are you doing with the news? And he said, he took a pause and he sat back and he said, well, the sun rose this morning the way it always does. The people that loved me yesterday still love me today. I've got my health. I'm good. And it was just stunning to me how how beautifully he was focused on all that he had to be grateful for in that moment, even though he's facing this big change, you know, that we worked on together, but he was facing this big change, but he was focused on all the things he had to be grateful for. And what I've seen is when people are seeing the glass half full versus half empty, they tend to have a quicker, easier time of connecting with their next step professionally. And they tend to have a little more fun, a little easier time, you know, while they do it. So I have seen that perspective is really key with anything, right? But particularly in a career transition. So you've seen this, of course. Which are you, a glass half empty or glass half full type of person? And I had an engineer in a previous session say, you know, that technically they are exactly the same. And, and it's true. Okay, physically it's exactly true. But it's really where we're focused, right? Are we focused in the presence of the water? Or are we focused in the absence of the water? And another story I'll share with you from clients that I've worked with. There was once a woman who came to me. She had also just been laid off. She had worked for many years in HR and financial services company. And she was one of the breadwinners for now a family of 5. And so at first, understandably, really concerned. She's got this news. She's going to get laid off. Her job's coming to an end. And so, so at first, of course, certainly felt like a glass half empty kind of moment. And then as we worked with what she could do with her circumstances and what she would really like at this point in her life and her career, first of all, she and her husband kind of took a look at their finances and realized they don't have to be making, they don't need for her to be generating the same kind of revenue or income that she had been. There's things they were spending money on that they didn't really have to and that weren't very valuable to them. And now she has 3 kids, including a set of young twins. And so, which is very different than when she started off, she was single working there. So what she really would like is not a full-time job, but more like 30-ish hours a week. She would really love to be home when her kids get off the bus. And she'd really love to keep doing HR. That's the work that she was involved in and enjoyed. And she feels like she wanted to be in an organization that she really supported the mission of, felt like she wanted to contribute to something that she cared about and felt like it made a difference at the end of the day. So long story short, we work with her. She ends up getting a job in a nonprofit, 30 hours a week, doing HR, making enough money for what their household can accommodate. And she could leave every day before 3 o'clock and be there for her kids when they got off the bus. This company was thrilled to have somebody of the caliber that they had, that they wouldn't have otherwise afforded. They could afford to just give her a 30-hour work week and, you know, the salary that would command. And she had the kind of lifestyle and work situation that was even a better fit than if she would have kept on with exactly where she'd been. So I've seen the more that people look for what could be the opportunity in this, they tend to also get, you know, situated more quickly and to a better opportunity. And what else would I say about that? For the sake of time, I guess the other thing.
We had one.
Oh, go ahead.
One question about gratitude, and there's been some research also just that the act of thanking can actually create changes in the person doing the thanking, right? That it simply, you know, being thankful actually physiologically changes your outlook. It's better than criticizing somebody, for example. Could you just, you know, double click on that a little bit if you could?
Yeah. The act of us expressing gratitude does all sorts of nice neurochemical things. The act of somebody receiving gratitude, also a nice little shower of neurochemicals, neurotransmitters. And get this, there's been studies that show somebody observing that interaction an act of kindness or an act of gratitude, even for them, they get a nice little shower. So it's just really good all the way around. Yeah, all the way around. And the other thing that I've seen help people in career transitions is to watch what we take in externally, right? In terms of the news, be careful what you allow, your mind to get fed. When I first started working for Keystone, it was when we had the recession in financial services, right? 2008 and 9. All sorts of people were getting laid off daily. We were getting news of the unemployment rate, right? And so at that time, it hit as high as 10%. And I could watch people coming in, and they would get more and more depressed and feel more and more like this is awful, this is hopeless. And if they were listening to the news. So if they stopped listening to the news, or they started listening to some positive news stations, and I'll tell you, there's one in the handouts at the end, the links at the end. And this is, again, a glass half full or glass half empty. Okay, maybe there's 10% unemployment. That means there's 90% of the population that wants to be employed that is employed. And where are we going to choose our focus? So just to pay attention to the outside and our own internal heads. All right. Oop, I want to go back to that. So just a quote I liked about gratitude. Gratitude can transform common days into Thanksgivings, turn routine jobs into joy, and change ordinary opportunities into blessings. So, and here's a little bit more of the research. Here's a slide about some of the things that have been scientifically measured about the power of gratitude. Then there's evidence that expressing gratitude opens the door to more relationships. It improves physical and psychological health. It enhances empathy, reduces aggression. We tend to sleep better if we're expressing gratitude, particularly if you focus on things you're grateful for just before you go to bed. You're going to tend to sleep better. It improves our self-esteem. It increases our mental strength and resilience. And particularly, they've done some studies when there's people that have had trauma to overcome, maybe veterans coming back from overseas or after 9/11. And gratitude also helps create that kind of resilience and mental and emotional bouncing back from trauma. So very powerful stuff, very powerful stuff. Again, free, takes a little bit of time, but very powerful results. So, experience. Like, this is the cartoon I picked for this one. I thought this was kind of fun, right? Isn't it more typical? We have a complaint department. When do we ever see a gratitude department? And it is understandable that we tend to focus on the few things that might be out of whack, right? That don't make us comfortable, aren't what we'd like, rather than the things that are going well. I mean, heck, some of the biggest, most important things to our well-being happen every day. The sun rose every day. The air, unlimited, that we need every second of our lives is here. There's so much that is good and that is being provided for us and is going on if we focus our attention that way. But gratitude is like a muscle. And just like if we were going to work out at the gym, at first we're kind of sore and achy. It takes us a lot of discipline to get there even. But the more we lift those weights, the more we exercise, the easier it gets. Then the easier it gets to pick up the bags of groceries, the easier it tends to be to ride that bike and to do the things you love to do. So just like a muscle, the more we practice it, the more we exercise it, the stronger and easier we'll get. The other thing that happens with the brain is that how we use the brain actually changes the brain. We used to think, right, that you're born, you have a brain, you have a body, you live with it, you use it throughout your lifetime. Well, what we now know about the brain is that how we use it, what we think and what we do changes the nature of the brain. Different areas of our brain will increase or decrease. So there's a kind of neuroplasticity to our brains over time. There's some very, very far out studies that's happening. But gratitude is also one of those things that literally is going to change your brain over time. And the more you express gratitude, the more you're going to recognize it, the more you're going to be aware of it, and the easier it'll be to do. So if you want a little challenge in this regard, here's my challenge for you. No complaints for 24 hours. Heck, frankly, even if you did it for 4 hours or even 1 hour. The idea is becoming aware of when you would tend to go towards the glass half empty or what's wrong with this situation as opposed to what's right with this situation. What do I have to be grateful for? And so what I would do, though, in addition, if you put if you're going to fast on in terms of complaints, the other thing I would suggest is to write down the things that you are grateful for. And so you might have a journal at your bedside, you might have cards, but have some place to write. There's more power in writing it than just thinking it, although there is certainly a power in thinking it as well. So, for example, when I was creating this slide, I thought of, okay, in terms of people, I'm thankful for my sweetheart. I'm thankful for my daughter. I'm grateful for my best friend and the kind of conversations we can have. I felt grateful for the kind man at the gas station who just volunteered to clean my windshield, you know. It was just a nice thing. In terms of things, it may sound funny, but I am grateful for my garage door opener. In the wintertime, it makes a world of difference when I come home, as opposed to having to get out and open or shut a garage door. It's just one of those nice things in life. I was feeling grateful for this beautiful maple tree that's outside my window and is just luscious shape and beautiful colors in the fall and makes for a nice view right outside my living room. And I was also being appreciative of the rain. You know, the plants need it. Everything's getting green. My perennials are popping up. And then in these pandemic times, I was very grateful to find a yoga class I could do on Zoom since my yoga studio was closed. Some other things I feel grateful for is because I'm driving less and commuting less to places, I'm walking somewhat more. The orchids, I get to enjoy the orchids that are in my home because now I'm working from home and they're in full bloom right now. They're just glorious and I'm enjoying them. I felt well rested the morning I woke up. That's always just a nice way to start the day. And I've been feeling grateful for strangers that I come across on a walk. You know, we tend to keep a safe distance, but we tend to be friendlier with each other than in normal circumstances. So those are a few things that I'd recommend. If you want to build that gratitude muscle, take a pause on criticisms or complaints and be active about practicing what you're grateful for. One thing I'll suggest that people do sometimes is 3 things that you're grateful for at the start of your day, 3 things that you're grateful for at the end of your day. And then just notice what happens over time. And it is something that can bring big results. And it will, just like meditation, it will have bigger and bigger payoffs the longer you do it and the more you practice it.
Bonnie, do you recommend keeping like a gratitude journal? When you talk about listing what you're thankful for, is it enough to just list it in your head, or does actually writing it out make a material difference?
Writing it does give more energy to it. It reinforces it more. Thinking it is one level of putting attention on gratitude. Speaking it is another level, and then writing it is yet another level of engagement. And so the more we're engaged in it, the more we're kind of reinforcing that. So writing it, I do recommend. And I've done both. I've done cards, I've done a journal. Right now, I do have a journal. It's just so quick and easy. It's the one thing, it sits on my bedside table, and I know when I grab it, I go straight to what am I grateful for. So it's become when you're talking about habitualizing some of these things, one journal where that's what goes in there does make it easier to be habitual. Yeah. Do we have any other questions at the moment?
Nope, that was it.
Okay, great. So what I'd like to do is shift into things that you're taking away. For those of you that are still with us, we're going to open up your ability to raise your hand. What you would do is just go, if you hover at the bottom of your screen, at the participants icon, and you go near your name. Let's see, is there a way they can raise their hand? Or actually, do they see a separate, Tina, do they see a separate hand raise icon at the bottom of their Zoom screen?
Yeah, it's under, yeah, I'm not actually seeing it myself right now.
Because I think
there is a way to raise your hand.
Oh, I see some hands. Okay, they found it. They figured it out. Okay, good.
Allow them to talk. If they would like to speak, I can allow them to talk.
Beautiful. So if you would go ahead and unmute whoever would like to either.
So it looked like Patricia Craig had her hand up first. Patricia, you're on soft mute right now, but if you would like to share your perspective or question, it looks like her hand is no longer raised.
Okay. Somebody was experimenting. Okay.
Yeah.
So what I would welcome is what you're taking away. I know there's a very well-known business coach named Brian Tracy, and he would say, whenever he would go to some sort of learning experience, if he picked up just even one tip that he then incorporated into his life, he's better off for it. And, my hope is certainly that you pick up more than one tip, but even if you picked up one tip that you feel like you want to practice or incorporate more fully into your life, or would like to try, that would be my wish for you, that you're inspired or motivated to do that. And I guess the other thing I would say is that my wish for you too is that you let this be more than just interesting information. It's sort of like, because the value is in the doing of it. It's sort of like having a great recipe for chocolate mousse, if you're a chocolate mousse lover, right? You're thinking about the ingredients, you hear the recipe, you can imagine what it would taste like, and oh yeah, that'd be a fantastic dessert to have. You might even share the recipe with other people. But it's only when you make that recipe that you're going to be able to savor, what that dessert has to offer you. So that's what I'd suggest here, is if there's any one thing that sounds like it might have some value for you, that I'd recommend trying it out. You be the experiment. You create your own evidence.
Well, I'm going to go first, Bonnie, and I'm going to say thank you, and I'm very grateful for you spending the time with us today. I'm keeping an eye on the questions, and it looks like our attendees are good. So I think we can give folks 15 minutes back, which they may be also grateful for. So on behalf of our attendees and the MIT Sloan Boston Alumni Association, thank you once again for sharing your time and insights with us tonight. Normally, I would give you a physical gift in appreciation, and I would ask everybody here to clap their hands. Instead, I'm going to ask folks to raise their hands so that you can see their virtual applause, and we'll mail your gift to you nonetheless.
Thank you.
For everybody who's in the audience, thank you for joining and participating in the discussion. We have some great additional virtual events planned over the coming months that I wanted to briefly share. Our next women's networking event will be held on June 3rd, which is next week, and it'll be a virtual wine tasting. Not sure how we're going to pull that off, but I'm sure it'll be fun. On June 9th, our 84th Career Series event on successful interview techniques for today's marketplace. And that'll include how to do well at video interviews. On June 10th, we're launching our MIT Sloan CIO Digital Learning Series with our first session, and there'll be more to come on the second or third Wednesday of every month. And then finally, on June 16th, our MIT Alumni Founders Therapy Roundtable number 7 will be held. So, you know, we thought our events were all going to stop. And in fact, these virtual events, we're seeing lots of people who are coming, and we're delighted that you're all joining us. Details for all these events are on our website at mitsloanboston.com. They're also in our association newsletter. So if you'd like that sent to you, you can register on the website or just email us. And if you're interested in getting more involved, feel free to drop us an email, either myself or Tina, and we'd be happy to help you join in. Finally, we'd really appreciate your feedback. We ask that you just take a few minutes to complete the brief survey that'll appear when you close out your event console. Thank you again, Bonnie, for joining us tonight, and thank you to everybody who's here, and hope you all have a great and safe night.
You're welcome. My pleasure. Good night, everybody. Take good care.
Thank you.